Well, hey there. It's Monday and time for another Monday Mastery. And we're live at 6 o'clock, 6:01 actually. Sorry, I'm a minute late. I'm sitting here playing with technology and come to find out that the system I'm using just hasn't quite, I don't know, something's changed and it's not keeping my settings. And I've come to find out the last 2 or 3 weeks that I'm using the the built-in microphone on my camera as opposed to the microphone in front of me. So anyway, I am author and dating coach Rick Sodabeer, and I'm here to help you master your dating and relationship issues, or master relationship and dating, period. And it's always an ongoing process. It's always a learning process, even for me. And the couple of things that I've noticed, it probably in the last 6 months or maybe even a year, is I've been becoming distracted with all of the copious amounts of information out there. And it just struck me earlier today that I need to get back to basics, which is what I teach, is getting back to the basics of dating, the basics of relationships. I I'm inundated in my reels on Facebook with social, um with relationship coaches and just relationship comments, and everybody's got a their own interpretation of what is correct, what isn't, and some of it I truly agree with, and other parts of it is like, holy moly, where did you come up with that stuff? And so I've just decided that I need to get back to some basics. And again, it's another Random Thoughts Monday. We probably have a few of these in a row, but there are so many moving parts to healthy relationships, and we can't possibly move forward until we understand what those moving parts are. And one of those, I've been rereading my book, a book that I wrote 10 years ago, and to kind of get me back into the fundamentals, which is what I teach, is the fundamentals of dating. And we've lost over the decades, at least for me, over the decades, we've lost the understanding and the fundamentals of dating. And it's a it's a process. And I go back to where I was about 50 years ago, and where I was mentally when I was dating 50 years ago. And I'm not saying that I was smart about dating back then, but what I did know is there were some fundamentals that the man had to ask the woman out on by Wednesday for a date on Saturday. There are some fundamentals about opening doors, about whether it's a car door or the restaurant door or the theater or the bar or wherever you're heading. Even if you're heading home, if you're walking in the door, the man should be opening the door. Ladies, if you don't like that, well, uh, I'm sorry. That's as plain and simple as I can be. It's the man's role to open doors for you. It's the man's role to treat you with dignity and respect. If you're not getting that, it's time to move on. Now, does that mean that you have to take advantage of him? Absolutely not. I see a lot of people talking about who pays for the date. And in my opinion, it goes back to my upbringing, that if I ask you out, I'm paying. Now, does that mean it will stay that way? No. I believe in sharing that expense at some point. And what point? I don't know. And for it will vary from relationship to relationship. It might be the second date that you start sharing expenses, where she buys for the second date, or they split the expense of the date. And the first date, ladies, and this is one of the things that I see so much on on social media today, that he has to come up with some elaborate first date and impress you and da 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 da. And my advice to the guys is, don't do it. If that's what the lady's expecting, then don't do it. She's not going to be the one, because she's only going to expect more and more and more from you. And there comes a point in time where there is no more to give. That the elaborateness and the the extravagance of dates can get way out of hand. It's in today's economy, you can end up spending two, three, $400, $500 on a date. I know several years ago I went out on a date. It cost me, oh, if I'm not mistaken, it was close to $600. We had tickets for a concert, and it was my idea for the concert. And I asked the lady out, and she said yes. And but we went to dinner, and there were cocktails, and parking. But the tickets were concert tickets, and it was a concert I really wanted to see. And normally I wouldn't spend $250 a ticket for a concert, but it was somebody I really wanted to see. So, ladies, when you think about especially a first date, and this was not our first date, and when you think about first dates, ladies, think about what the guy has to go through. It's nice to have these wildly romantic, the fantastic dinners, fantastic atmosphere, but that can only go on for so long. Not every man is a bottomless has bottomless pockets. So the idea that he would have to keep perpetuating that kind of event is restrictive. And you're probably looking at the top 1 or 2% of all earners, and that's a very small number. The other 98% of us, well, we've got we've got limitations, even financial limitations. And that's one of the reasons I always suggest that coffee or cocktails for the first date, maybe even the first couple of dates, and get to know each other. Go someplace where you can have a decent conversation. Get to know each other. That's what these first dates are all about. That's what second dates are all about, is still getting to know. Even the first couple of months, if you're dating somebody, it's about getting to know them, getting to know each other, to see if this is somebody that you could see a future with, or potentially see as an ongoing relationship, or if there are red flags and warning signs that are popping up, or maybe he doesn't have everything that you want on your must-have list. And that brings up another thought. This morning I posted on Facebook, are you the person that you'd love to date? And that's a very serious, a very deep question. And it's one that you have to ask yourself seriously. And one of the ways of finding out if you're somebody that you would date, that you'd love to date, is to create, or look, if you haven't created it already, to look at your must-have list and see if you possess everything that you want in a relationship. That can be a tough question. If you don't possess everything you want on your must-have list, what are you going to do to become that? It should be up to you to be the person that you'd love to date. If you need to make some changes, if you need to whatever it is, if you need to learn some skills or some habits or interests, pick up different interests. What are the things that you're doing to become the person that you'd love to date? And if you're not there, don't worry about it. It's just something that you should be working on and stepping up to the plate and saying, okay, I'm not everything that I could be. So what can I do to get myself to that place? So, and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop those questions into the chat box. I'd love to answer your questions because that's partly what I'm here for. In fact, that's mostly what I'm here for, is to answer your questions and thoughts and concerns and to help you sort through some of the things that you may be going through. What are the things that you're doing that may be interfering with your dating life? What are the things that you're doing that may be restricting you from finding the extraordinary relationship that you're truly looking for? So, again, feel free to ask away, or you can always email me or message me. And again, it's all about building connections, and how do you develop those connections? One of the biggest questions I get is, where do you look? Where do you look for a a an extraordinary relationship, or even somebody to date? I get so many comments that there are no good people left to date. Well, how many people have you actually dated to determine that? And when I've asked clients that, initially they said, well, I've had half a dozen dates in the last 18 months. Well, that's really not enough to determine that the other 2,000 people that are potentially eligible are not worthy. So you have to take a look at what have you done to determine, or what experiences have you had that determine there are no good people left. Part of it is, how much activity, how much dating activity have you had? Where have you looked? And what have you brought to the table? So, and that's another huge question, and it goes back to, it just circles right back around to what makes you uh, somebody that you'd love to date. These this is all, it's simple, but it's not. It takes effort. It's all simple in concept, but it takes effort. And when you start putting in the effort, when you start doing your share, the way I look at it is, we all have somebody that's out there looking for us. And if you give up on dating, you know, what chance do they have of finding you? And vice versa. If they give up, what chance do you have of finding them? So it's a matter of staying active in the world of dating. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to get discouraged from time to time. It's not to say that you won't have any poor experiences. We all do. We start to talk to somebody, and we have high hopes for something to to um, to build on what we expect, or what we see as potential. But then all of a sudden it fizzles out for one reason or another. It may be that there's distance, or there's financial issues, or there's family issues, or things that just kind of kind of put distance between us, or we get focused on work, or we temporarily have to step back and do things that we don't normally, that may not normally be in our path, or things may get in our way to dating successfully. but you have to navigate through this world and figure out what is it? What are these issues? Are they temporary or are they permanent? And if they're permanent, then you have to start looking in a different pool. And if you've had a lot of missteps, a total lack of success with your dating, you have to take a look at where are you looking. Online is a good example. I have people tell me they've met the loves of their lives online, and I've had other people tell me that, oh man, Rick, this is just so terrible. There's so many scammers and da 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 da. Well, part of it has to do with how your profile is written. Are you writing your profile in a way that attracts the negative? I read a profile, I don't know, it was yesterday or maybe this morning, and it was every and it just amazed me because she stated in her bio that everything that she didn't want. So, what do you think she's going to attract when she's putting down all these things that she doesn't want? Does that tell me what she does want? Does that tell me what kind of a person she is? Absolutely not. Other than potentially she's a very negative person. She's had some bad relationship. At least for me, I assume she's had some bad relationship experiences because she's sharing everything. uh, My guess is she's sharing everything that she's experienced in previous relationships. And this may sound cold, but whose whose responsibility is that? Is it her dating partner, or is it her is it her responsibility? We are all the common denominators in all of our relationships, good and bad. So when we look at relationships, are we and the things that have gone wrong, are we looking at what we've contributed to that? That's a huge, huge, huge component in dating. What are we contributing to in our failed relationships? Is it the people we're choosing? And usually that's it. Is we make bad choices, and I've made bad choices. I've made some good choices, but the relationships that have had problems are generally relationships that, yeah, I probably should have recognized a little bit sooner or acted a little bit sooner and left those relationships, simply for the fact that I already recognized that it was not a soulmate level relationship. And if you're looking for if you're just looking for someone to hang out with, or if you're just looking for uh, somebody to do things with, or companionship, and you don't really care about the quality of the relationship, then you can hang around with anybody. It doesn't make any difference. What makes a difference is if you're seriously looking for an extraordinary relationship or a soulmate relationship, you have to focus on that. You can't just hope that somebody's magically going to appear in your life and sweep you off your feet. That happens in romance novels and movies, and on the big screen. But that doesn't just generally doesn't happen in real life. Now, there may be rare instances where that happens, but for the majority of us, from the 99% of us, we have to look for that relationship. We have to be an active participant. We have to know what we want in that next relationship. And that's why it's important to have your must have and your deal breaker list. It's important for you to be emotionally prepared to date. And a lot of times I talk about being emotionally prepared by being over past relationships. But some of the emotional preparedness comes from understanding that this is not just a uh, I'm going to start to date. I'm going to find my soulmate and I'll live happily ever after. It takes time and effort. I know when I first got divorced, I thought 9 months, a year on the outside, I'll find my soulmate and we'll live happily ever after. Well, I'm 14 years into being single. And I've had a couple of relationships along the way, but that being said, is I've met some great women along the way. I've just recognized that they're not a good fit for what I'm looking for in a relationship. And you need to be doing the same thing. And it doesn't mean that and I've had some bad relationships. And they didn't last long. And the older I get, the less the less tolerance I have for additional stress, for additional problems, for additional headaches. If I see that somebody isn't right for me, it's pretty much right from the get-go that I I can recognize and say, yeah, you this just isn't working for me. You may be a great woman, but it's time to move on. I This is not what I'm looking for in a relationship. So, and you all need to do that too. And the sooner you can do that, the less emotional the less emotional entanglement that you'll get into, and the less emotional energy you'll spend on the wrong relationships in the wrong places with the wrong people. And it doesn't mean, when I say that, it doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they aren't the right ones for you. And if you've watched me for any amount of time, all of this should be pretty repetitive, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be. Because so many people just don't get it. So many people, if the statistics are true, over two-thirds of people over 50 that are single are giving up on dating. They're giving up on another relationship. And that, to me, that's heartbreaking, because you were meant to be with somebody. We're meant to be in That's the way God created us. That we're designed to have a partner. And science shows us that we're better off as a couple than we are as individuals. We live longer, we have happier lives. And it does, and when I say we have happier lives, it doesn't mean that we're going to that everything is going to be rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies. It just isn't. Every relationship has its ups and downs. Every relationship is going to have its struggles. But when you're with the right person, it makes the journey so much easier. It makes the workload so much lighter. And we we don't for those of us, or for those of you that have never been in a soulmate relationship, you don't know what you're missing. I mean, it isn't until you actually reach that level of connectedness. And only about 12 to 15% of marriages actually reach that level or are at that level. The rest of us have been in marriages and in relationships that are okay. They may be even good, but there's still something missing along the way. And we have to recognize that we need to put effort into finding that extraordinary relationship, because statistics also show us that second and third marriages have a higher probability of failing than they do of succeeding. I think the last statistics I saw were that second marriages had about a 62 or 63% failure rate. Third marriages had a 71 or 72% failure rate. That's not good. Holy crap. If I were working on odds like that, I would quit also. But the reality is there are a lot of good people out there. And unfortunately, there are a lot of damaged people out there. And that goes back to being emotionally ready for dating. And that means being being emotionally free of past relationships, because there can be a lot of hurt and a lot of anger and a lot of lots of negative emotions tied into to past relationships, especially if you had a bad divorce. uh, and and I don't want to exclude widows in this, but there's a different hurt there. You're dealing with a loss that you had no control over. It was something that was literally thrust on you. And my experience is it takes widows typically a lot longer to recover and get to a point where they're truly ready to date and emotionally ready, because there's a lot of baggage that comes along with widowhood. It's and there are phases that you go through. The first year is basically, you're in a fog, just trying to get your feet back under you and survive one day to the next. Then it comes time to take the make that point, or make that step of taking your wedding ring off. And there's another milestone of going through the closets and getting rid of your late spouse's clothes. Then there's getting rid of tools or other things that, whether it's um I'll use my mother. She was a craft, knitting and crocheting. Going through all that stuff, that was like, oh crap. It's who do you sell it to, or is there somebody that that you can give that stuff to? Because there's not much value there, but it's a matter of cleaning all that stuff out. And I'm talking about when my mom passed away. But we have to go through all of those things. As a widow or widower, you have to go through those steps, those phases. And a lot of comments that I get from widows or widowers is they keep their house as a memorial to their late spouse. And what I mean by that is there are pictures and all kinds of knickknacks and memorabilia all over the house. And as long as that happens, you're not letting someone new into your life, because they can't compete with that. And you have to recognize that that is a difficult situation to walk into. How can I ever live up to what this other person did or said or provided for you? And as a widow or widower, you have to step back and say, yeah, I recognize that any new relationship I have is going to be different. It can be as good or maybe even better. But you have to be able to step back and let certain things go. And if you were in a bad relationship, and I'm not saying you have to get rid of memories, or you can keep all that stuff stored away or set off in some place, but you have to pare back. Keep the best memories, and the rest of it, give to your kids, or pack it up, and so that you can create room for someone else. And I'm not please don't misunderstand me. I'm not getting all woo woo and oh, what's the name of the Secret? Not The Secret. No, there's another book. I forget what the name of it is, but it's all about manifesting somebody new into your life. And I know there are some of you out there that believe in manifesting personally. My manifesting comes from going out and doing it. And that just takes time. But my point is that if you're too wrapped up with the past, it's going to prevent you from any kind of solid future. And a couple of people that I've talked with and messaged over the past week or so, we've talked about. how bad experiences cause us to build walls, and the more bad experiences you have, the higher and thicker the walls become. But what you fail to realize is all of these walls that you build to protect your heart, the walls that you build to keep the hurt out, they're also the walls that you build up that keep the love that you're looking for away from you, because it can't get through. And so you have to create some vulnerability in your life. You have to start tearing those walls down and start allowing yourself and recognizing that at some point you are going to have to be vulnerable. If you want an extraordinary relationship, if you're looking for your soulmate, you have to be at a point where you're open enough to be willing to be hurt and to be open to be hurt again. Doesn't mean that you will be. And if you're dating intentionally, if you're being smart about your dating, you'll limit that collateral damage, so to speak. It's something that you can control a majority of that damage, and you can do that simply by number one, setting good standards, having your must have and your deal breaker list uh, completed. It's amazing how that keeps popping up, because that is the one tool that I try to, or one skill that I try to teach all of you. I try to teach everybody that is your one best tool for keeping yourself out of bad relationships and out of mediocre relationships, and helping you focus on the extraordinary relationships. That one tool is your key to dating and relationship success. If there is nothing else that I give you, using that and living by that, and recognizing that it's a I don't want to say living document, but it's not a static document. It's not a something you write down today and it's good for the rest of your life. No, it's dynamic. It will change as you date people. You'll update your list. You may update your must-have list. You may update your deal breaker list, because you will meet people that you'll say, "Oh man, I don't like this person. I wouldn't want to spend the rest of my life with them, but they have a couple of good qualities that I'd really love in my next relationship." Or that you may come across somebody that says, "Oh, nope, this is a one and done date," and it's a personality thing. It may be a hygiene thing. And that's something I don't talk about much, but hygiene is a big deal. And especially, ladies, y'all are pretty good about the hygiene stuff. But men, holy moly. I several years ago I was at an event, a social event, and a gentleman came up and talked to me, and his breath was so bad, and it was all I could do to stand close enough to listen to him in the environment we were in. And the one thing, had I had the mints in my pocket, I would have offered him one, and I would have literally said, "Here, take the whole roll." And not to embarrass him, but to allow him to take care of a situation in that is a huge turnoff for a lot of people. And that's, just very simply, if you're on a date, make sure you have breath mints with you. If you're on a date, make sure you haven't had Italian or coffee or wine. Maybe on the date you can have some wine, but if it's coffee or cocktails, fine. But otherwise, coffee breath, um, garlic breath, some of those things. Uh, just practice good hygiene. Guys, don't come out of working in the garage or working out in the field or working out in the yard and come in all throw on a clean shirt and head out to to your date. Clean up. Take a shower, comb your hair. Um, if you don't know how to iron, learn how to press a shirt. You can. A lot of this stuff is they wash and wear, or wrinkle free. That's th- that's a bane to my existence. I hate those things because they never look truly fresh. Guys, put a crease in your sleeve. If you don't know how to do it, take it to a laundry and let them do launder your shirts for you, at least so that you've got a good press to them. And a lot of them, some places will fold them up, and then you've got creases all over the place. But a good laundry will hang up your dress shirts or your button down shirts. They'll put them on a hanger for you, and so they're all ready to go. There's nothing to do except button it up, and away you go. And it's been a while since I've had a laundry to do that for me, but I don't think it's more than $2 or $3 a shirt. So and you can get them starched and make them nice and crisp. And ladies, tell me if I'm wrong, that a guy dressed in with a nice shirt, nice creased sleeves, and it just ups his game. And it's generally a little more impressive than showing up with a shirt that's wrinkled and you look like a mess. um this is one that I hate to mention, but guys, trim the hairs in your ears and in your nose. It's as we age, this stuff starts to grow. When we were young, we never had that problem. You got to trim, you got to check the ears and the nose regularly, and if you're like me, the eyebrows grow, and if I let them grow long enough, I'll look like Nikita Khrushchev. And so it's, you got to trim those too. So there's just a lot of moving parts. If you don't know what's going wrong in your dating life, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what your roadblocks are. Now, a number of you will tell me that you rarely get far enough to get to a first date, and in today's society, that's not totally uncommon. And some of you have to go back to the organic way of dating. Online can be a great way to connect, but you eventually have to meet face to face. And when I say organic, ladies, y'all tell me you don't want to hang out in the bars, you don't want to. Where did you find guys when you were younger? It's not always the most fun place to hang out. But if they've got good music, there's nothing more enjoyable than hanging out on a Saturday night listening to some awesome music. Getting out on the dance floor if you enjoy dancing. But you can't do that sitting at home. You can't do that by avoiding these places. You have to step out. And it goes back to, I mentioned a little bit earlier, a lot of people ask me where to look. Well, what's on your must-have list? Do you want somebody that has similar interests to you? What are your interests? Where do you hang out? Are you a sailor? Do you hang out at the marina? Are you and I had a friend of mine, somebody asked me this several years ago, and a friend of mine just popped up and she said, you go to the golf course, take a golf lesson on a Saturday morning. There's plenty of guys there. And this is more for the ladies. She said, go to the shooting range. There's plenty of guys there, especially on a Saturday morning. You can strike up a conversation. And ladies, don't be afraid to start a conversation. It's guys can be dumb, and even more so, we can't read minds. In our society, we've been told that if we go up and ask you to ask you out, and sometimes even just asking you to dance, we're a creep or a stalker. And on the other hand, uh, we're wimps if we don't. We're so men are caught in a I guess a double whammy. We're damned if we do and damned if we don't. So, you have to show, ladies, you have to show some interest, and that may be striking up a conversation. And for anyone, men or women, learn to strike up a conversation anywhere, anytime with anyone. Not every conversation is going to lead you to a getting a phone number or a first date, but it will break the ice, and you'll quickly be able to find out if somebody's interested or if they're not. There was a I was listening to somebody, and he was talking about, and I may have shared this a week or so ago. It was a really awesome conversation. But how many of you have thought, "Oh man, I should have gone up and talked to her. Oh, I should have said something to him. I was so attracted to him, but I didn't have the guts, or I didn't have the wherewithal to go up and strike up a conversation." And he gave the example of, closing the circle. We live with all of these open circles in our lives. I should have done this. I should have done that. What if I would have done this, or what if I would have done that? And he said, he used the example of a young man going up and spotting a woman from across the room, and he went up and asked her, if he could. He said, "I think you're really attractive. Is there any possibility that I can get your phone number and we can talk later?" And she politely said no, and he walked off. Now he had two choices there. He had the option of thinking, "Oh crap, I just blew it. I'm not worthy. I'm an idiot," and da, 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 da. Or you can look at it as, I closed the loop. I closed the loop. Now I know she's not interested in me. I can go on. I don't have to think about this anymore. I'm not carrying this open loop or the in around with me anymore, thinking, "Oh, what if I would have gone up and asked her? Maybe she would have gone out with me." There would be none of these fantasies that we tend to hang on to about, "Oh man, I should have done this or I should have done that." Learn to step out of your comfort zone. And ladies, this really goes for you too. So many people say, there's so many ladies tell me that you're old fashioned or traditional, and you want the man to do all of the pursuing. Let me tell you, men like to be pursued also. And that's just the down and dirty. Men like to be pursued. So if you see somebody that you'd really like to meet, there are historical references that that show that throughout history, women have made the first move. You can go back to the Bible and look at Ruth and Boaz. Ruth Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, gave her instructions to wait till Boaz was drunk and then crawl into his bed. And she slept at his feet. In the morning, he wakes up and said, "Who is that? What are you doing there?" And that's how they met. Is Ruth went into Boaz, and then in the 1800s and even before, and you can find examples throughout history, but in the 1800s, it would be the lady that would drop her handkerchief as she's walking down the sidewalk, and as she'd drop it in front of the man, and that she was attracted to, and he'd pick it up and say, "Ma'am, you dropped this." "Oh, did I?" And that's where the conversation would start. So there are historical references that and it hasn't been until the last 100 years or so that it's been the man's responsibility to strike up a conversation, to ask the woman out, to try to develop a connection. Ladies, don't be afraid to try to develop a connection with a guy. And sometimes you just have to say, and don't, please don't drop hints. Say, if you're having a conversation with a guy, and whether it's at church or whether it's some social, and you've just been talking, and you can say, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I'd like to do this again, and are you interested? And then maybe you can leave it up to the guy to pick the time and the place, but don't don't leave a conversation without saying, I really enjoyed our conversation. And if you didn't enjoy the conversation, number one, don't say that you did. And number two, if somebody says that to you and you didn't enjoy the conversation, said, yeah, it was very nice meeting you. And you can end it just like that. Doesn't mean you have to it doesn't mean you have to take it any further, but you have to get out there and put yourself out there and look for ways of connecting. You know, uh, and only you know what your interests are. So you have to think outside the box. What are the type of guy you're looking for? What is he going to be doing on the weekends? What is he going to be out running? Is he going to be competing in a 5K or 10K or a marathon? You know, is that something you should be doing or working towards? You know, there are endless opportunities. You just have to create them. It's finding the things that you're interested in. Now we're not going to be interested in absolutely everything that's the same. Each of us are going to bring unique experiences to the relationship. For um, most people don't sail. I sail. That's something unique that I bring to the table. Most people, there's a lot of people that snow ski, and so that's something I do also. So that's something that we can create a connection that way. And I'm just using myself because a lot of you will ask me, well, Rick, I don't know. And I say, well, start examining the things you enjoy doing, and maybe examine the things you'd like to do, such as travel. Where would you like to travel? If you're creating an online profile or you're having a conversation with somebody, talk about travel. Where would you like to travel? Oh, have you been there? Oh my gosh, that would be so fascinating. Tell me about it. You can strike up a conversation that way. And it doesn't take much. Just it takes a little bit of stepping outside your comfort zone to make that happen. So anyway, that's probably enough of random thoughts. Anybody have any questions or comments so far? Y'all have been pretty quiet, bopping in and out of the what are we doing? The live event here. Oops. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful for you. It's kind of a random thought, kind of just running through a lot of the dating, a lot of aspects of dating in a short period of time. If you have questions or concerns or would like help, just reach out to me. I've been coaching now for 10 years, and I've helped a lot of folks work through a lot of issues, everything from how to let go of broken relationships or past relationships, to how to move into new relationships, how to find uh, good people. I'm not a matchmaker, so I don't have a list of people for you to date, but I can help you create a path finding your soulmate, and then helping you become emotionally ready for dating. And some of it, again, is being able to let go of past relationships. But the other part of it is to help you get mentally prepared for some of the stresses of today's dating. And so if any of those things are questions or concerns or problems, just drop me a note. Let's talk for 30 minutes and see if you're somebody that I can help also. In the meantime, have a great week and have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you next Monday for Monday Mastery.